Chosen one, stop what you are doing right now. Put everything else down, because what I am about to say requires your complete presence. Not half of it, not the part of you that is still scrolling and half listening. Everything. Because this message has been working its way toward you for longer than you know. And now that it has arrived, I need you to receive it fully. Let me ask you something personal. How long have you been faithful to something that has not yet produced visible fruit? How long have you been showing up to the prayer, to the obedience, to the calling, without the confirmation in the physical world that your invisible work has been received? How long have you been planting with your hands, believing with your heart, and watching other people enter their harvest while your field stays quiet? I know that question has a long answer for you, and I want you to know, before we go any further, that the length of your waiting is not evidence of your failure. It is evidence of the weight of what has been prepared for you. The fields that produce the most extraordinary harvests are the ones that were prepared the longest. What has been accumulating in your life behind the dam of God's perfect timing is not a small harvest. But I know there is a question living in the quietest part of your chest, a question you have been almost afraid to give words to. The question is this: did I miss it? Was there a divine window that I failed to walk through? And now it is simply gone? Chosen one, I am here today, with the full authority of the eternal Word of God, to answer that question. And the answer is going to reframe every season you have lived through, up until this moment. Your harvest has not passed. It has not been revoked or reassigned. It has been held, deliberately, purposefully. And the reason it has been held is the revelation at the center of everything I am about to open for you. Stay with me. Let me describe something to you with precision. Tell me if this is familiar, not vaguely familiar, but the kind of familiar where recognition arrives in your body before your mind has time to process the words. You carry a knowing, not a wish. A knowing, the kind that lives beneath logic, beneath every circumstance that argues against it. Since you were young, before disappointment had the chance to educate your expectations downward, you have known that a life of greater impact and deeper purpose exists with your name on it. A specific calling, a specific assignment. Not a vague spiritual concept, but an actual identifiable thing you were built to do and to be. And yet, the gap remains between what you know in your spirit and what you see with your eyes. And that gap has refused to close, no matter how faithfully you have worked to narrow it. The finances never quite reach stability. Not desperation. God has always provided enough to keep you in the field, but never enough to breathe freely. Always another unexpected expense arriving at the exact moment momentum was building. Always another month that requires more faith than the last. I know you have given generously in seasons when your own account could not afford it, because your spirit understood the principle even when your wallet argued against it. And the harvest of that faithful sowing has not come back in the measure or timing you trusted for. I see the relationships, the pattern of connection that runs at a deficit. Close people, people with intimate access to your heart, who turned in moments you did not anticipate. Psalm 41:9 was written for your experience. Even my close friend, someone I trusted, who shared my bread, has turned against me. I know that wound, and I know you have carried it with more grace than most people would have managed. I see the mornings, waking from 8 hours of sleep, carrying a tiredness that rest cannot touch. Not physical exhaustion, a weariness in the part of you that hopes and reaches toward a future you can feel but cannot yet touch. And beneath it all, the fear you almost never say out loud. What if my season has already moved on without me? Chosen one. That fear is a lie. And I am going to dismantle it with surgical precision, using words written by the finger of God, thousands of years before your fear had a name. Your harvest has not passed, it has been held, and the holding has been protective. And the reason, the specific, glorious reason, is what the rest of this message will give you completely. Before we go deeper, anchor yourself in this moment. Press the like button right now, not as a social gesture, but as a declaration that you are present and open to receive. Type 777 in the comments. 7 is the number of divine completion, the number that marks the finished work of God, whole and perfect in its architecture, even when it is not yet visible to human eyes. In Genesis, the seventh day was God's rest. Not because he was tired, but because the work was complete. When you type 777, you are declaring, God's work in my life is finished and on schedule. And subscribe now if you have not yet done so. This word will keep reaching you at exactly the right seasons. Now, let's go to the depth. I want to take you to a detail inside a familiar story that most teachers pass over on the way to more dramatic territory. Ruth chapter 2, verse 3. And I need you to hear it not as ancient Hebrew narrative, but as a living word written in advance about your specific life right now. Ruth had lost everything, husband gone, homeland gone, no network, no inheritance, no inherited social access to the systems of provision in her culture. She went to do the only thing available to someone in her position. She went to glean in the fields. Gleaning was honorable work, but it was work at the margins, the edges. The leftovers the primary harvest missed. Enough, but only just. And then verse 3 says, something extraordinary with quiet words. And she happened to come to the part of the field belonging to Boaz. She happened to, not guided audibly, not directed by a sign. Without a map, she simply went out in faithfulness and arrived at exactly the field that belonged to the one man in the entire region, whose character, wealth, and covenant position made him the vehicle of her complete transformation. Chosen one. There are no accidents in the geography of the chosen. What looks like coincidence in your story is divine positioning. The video you happen to find, the conversation that happened to occur, the connection that arrived from an unexpected direction. None of it is random. You are being walked. There is a navigation operating in your life that does not announce itself in advance, does not show you the full map. It simply ensures that when you keep moving in faithfulness, you arrive at exactly the field that was prepared for you. And when Ruth arrived, Boaz did not tolerate her presence at the margins. He saw her. He called her forward, out of the edges, into the center of the abundance. He invited her to drink from the water prepared for his own workers. And then he gave his harvesters a specific instruction. Drop grain in her path intentionally, not leftovers. Full, abundant grain, placed deliberately in her way by the direct command of the one who owned everything. That is what God does for the chosen one when the appointed moment arrives. He does not eventually allow you a share of the margins. He calls you forward to the center. He instructs the harvest to favor you. He tells the systems, the resources, the connections, already in motion for other purposes, to drop extra in your path. The question is never whether the field exists. The question is, are you still in the field when Boaz looks up? Now the second truth, and this explains the years. Ecclesiastes 3:1. There is a time for everything, and a season for every activity, under the heavens. Most people receive this as comfort. Be patient, your time will come. That is true. But the depth of this verse goes much further. If there is a time for everything, a specific, designated, pre-appointed time, then your harvest does not have a question mark over it. It has a date, an appointment written into the calendar of eternity before the first second of your life was lived. And why this long? Why not in an earlier season when you were also faithful? Because the harvest has been held not because it was not ready, but because you were still being prepared to receive it without it destroying you. There is a version of your blessing arriving before your character was built to hold it that would have overwhelmed what it was designed to build. The delay has not been God withholding from you. The delay has been God protecting you, building the capacity, the root depth, required to sustain what is coming rather than being toppled by it. Deuteronomy 8:18. It is He who gives you the ability to produce wealth. Not just the desire, the ability, the inner architecture. And God does not build the ability and then permanently withhold the wealth. He builds until the depth is right, and then releases with the full force of everything that has been accumulating. And the third truth seals it. Galatians 6:9. Let us not grow weary of doing good, for in due season we will reap if we do not give up. In due season, the season designated and appointed from before the foundation of the world for this specific field and this specific laborer. And the single operative condition, if we do not give up, not if we perform perfectly, not if we never doubt, if we do not give up. The enemy has been working with extraordinary patience toward one singular goal, not to destroy you outright, but to time your quitting, to build the conditions, layering disappointments, engineering near misses, orchestrating the closing of doors at the worst possible moments, to bring you to the exact edge of your due season and convince you to release your hand from the plow one step before the ground breaks open. Every attack, every delay, every strategic discouragement, all of it aimed at one outcome, that you would quit the morning before the miracle. You have not quit. That is not a small thing. Most people, faithful, gifted, genuinely called people, release the plow in the final stretch, not because they are weak, because the final stretch is specifically engineered to feel like it will never end. Your refusal, your costly, bone-deep, sometimes barely surviving refusal to let go, is not stubbornness. It is the fingerprint of God on a life He has not finished with. And it is the precise reason the due season you have been pressing toward is not behind you. It is in front of you, closer than it has ever been. This is the layer the enemy fought hardest to keep you from seeing. Because once you see it clearly, his most powerful weapon against your faith becomes permanently useless. Picture a fruit tree, not a grain crop on a short annual cycle, a fruit tree on a generational timeline. When you plant grain, the cycle is predictable. Plant, grow, harvest, replant, visible progress, measurable rhythm. But a fruit tree operates by completely different laws. Year 1, nothing edible. Year 2, still nothing substantial. Year 3, 4, early signs, small formations. During all of those years, the tree is not failing, not behind schedule, not being punished. It is doing the most important work of its entire life, work that happens entirely underground, entirely invisible, unmeasurable by any external standard. It is building root, the underground architecture that will determine the magnitude and longevity of every harvest that follows. And when the tree matures, it does not produce one season and stop. It produces harvest after harvest, year after year, compounding in abundance as the root deepens. 10 years of fruit, 20, the tree your children climb and your grandchildren rest under. Every harvest more than the last. You are a fruit tree, not a grain crop. And the enemy has been measuring your life against a grain timeline, specifically because he knows a fruit tree measured against a grain standard will always appear to be failing. But the root has been growing. In the dark, in the hidden places, in the seasons that felt empty from the surface. Your foundation has been becoming something that can hold what is coming without being toppled by it. Isaiah 54:17. No weapon formed against you shall prosper. The delay formed, the attacks launched, but none of it accomplished its mission. The evidence? You are here, with root. And that root is about to become the most valuable thing you carry into everything that follows. Now I want to give you the signs, the specific signs that confirm your harvest season is approaching, because the chosen one moves on. Confirmation, not just feeling. The first sign, provision arriving from unexpected directions, not the doors you positioned yourself in front of. Random, small, unpredictable provision from angles you never planned for. These feel easy to dismiss as coincidence. Do not dismiss them. They are scouts. When an army approaches, it sends advance scouts before the main force arrives. The scouts are small, easy to overlook, but they are the announcement of what is marching behind them. Start writing down every unexpected small provision in recent weeks. You are looking at scouts. The second sign, a sharpening of your sense of calling. Not a new calling, a clarification, a focusing of what you already knew. The thing you were born to do feels more specific and more urgent now than it did a year ago. A craftsman sharpens the tool he is about to use, not the one going back into storage. God does not sharpen a vision to taunt you with it. He sharpens what is about to be deployed. The third sign, an unusual release of old grief you did not fully realize you were still holding. Old wounds, old betrayals, and in recent weeks or months, a peace settling in those places that you cannot fully explain. This is not small. The harvest cannot flow through hands that are clenched. The opening of the hand that was holding old pain is directly connected to the provision that is approaching. The fourth sign, a specific person has appeared whose arrival felt unusually significant. Not dramatic, a resonance, a sense of appointment your mind cannot fully account for. Pay close attention. Write their name down. Ruth's entire destiny changed because one man looked up from his work and saw her. Your Boaz encounter may already be in progress. The fifth sign is that you are here, right now, that you stayed with this message. That is not content consumption. That is divine positioning. You were walked here exactly like Ruth was walked to Boaz's field. And what comes next is what came next for her. Say this out loud right now, with your actual voice. My root is deep. My season is here. I will not release my hand from the plow. The harvest prepared for me is arriving now. Say it again, slower. Hebrews 4:12. The Word of God is living and active. When you speak it over your life, you're releasing a living force, not performing a ritual. Tell me in the comments which sign resonates most right now. Type 1, 2, 3, 4, or 5. The chosen one who finds this message at 3 a.m. in their most exhausted season will read your number and find the faith to stay in the field one more day. Your testimony is a weapon. And Job 20:15 seals what is coming. He has swallowed down riches and shall vomit them up again. Everything intercepted, every harvest stolen, every provision blocked. God has kept a complete record. The enemy is not asked to return what he swallowed. He is required to, with speed, with compounded interest. The vomiting up of everything swallowed is already in process. Chosen one final passage. Isaiah 43:18-19. God says, "Forget the former things. Do not dwell on the past. See, I am doing a new thing. Now it springs up. Do you not perceive it? I am making a way in the wilderness and streams in the wasteland. Not removing you from the wilderness first, making a way inside it. The hard place you are already standing in does not have to end before the provision begins. The wasteland becomes the location of the stream, not the place you leave to find water, but the place where water appears. The very ground that felt like evidence that nothing was growing becomes the stage where the harvest is displayed, publicly, unmistakably. And I need you to understand the radius of what is coming. The harvest assigned to your life is not sized only for your needs. It exceeds them, because God never builds a reservoir for a single cup. He builds for regions. The provision, the breakthrough, the transformation entering your story, it is designed to be visible, not for your pride, for someone else's faith. There are people watching you right now. Some you know, some you have not yet met, watching to see what happens to a person who refuses to let go. When they see what is coming for you, it'll become the evidence that rescues their own faith. Your harvest is someone else's prophecy, so do not leave the field. Not today. Not when the next unexpected bill arrives, or the next door seems to close. Hold your position. Keep your hands on the plow, because Boaz is already looking up. And when his eyes find you, standing faithfully in the field that was always yours, root deep, still present after everything the waiting cost, he will call you forward, out of the margins, into the center, into the full, overflowing, intentionally placed abundance of a harvest that was prepared before you took your first breath. Matthew 11:28. Jesus says, "Come to me, all you who are weary and burdened, and I will give you rest." Not rest after the harvest, rest now, in the field. While the ground is still hard, rest in the knowing that the appointment exists, that the date is written, that the hand that planted you has never looked away for a single season. Subscribe if you are not yet subscribed. Leave "My harvest is here" in the comments. Let the next chosen one read your declaration and find the courage to stay one more day. Share this with someone still in their waiting season, because this word may be the thing that keeps them in the field the morning before their ground breaks open. You are not a regular person living a difficult life. You are a fruit tree in full root, standing at the threshold of the most significant harvest season of your existence. The hand that planted you has not moved, has not reconsidered, has not for a single moment forgotten your name or your promise or the field where you have been faithfully and expensively doing the work the season required. That hand does not. Abandon what it planted. I will meet you in the next message. Your harvest is here. Stay in the field.